The title of today's topic is Learners from Conflicting and War-Affected Areas. Introduction. Over the years, the number of reported attacks allegedly by violent extremist groups is on the rise. As we remain mute spectators of such violence, we understand that violent conflicts are seamless and all-pervading. Young people are, however, most at risk. They are the main targets of recruitment strategies and fall victim to extremist violence. This phenomenon alerts us to the risk of losing a generation of youth to despair and disengagement. In the face of such threats, there is no single solution. Security responses are important but not sufficient and will not tackle the many underlying conditions that breed violent extremism and drive youth to join violent extremist groups. We need soft power, such as education. In particular, we need relevant, inclusive, and equitable quality education. Defining the context. Now defining the context becomes necessary because what are we talking about? In which context of violent extremism are we talking about? Violent extremism has become a serious threat facing societies across the world. It affects the security, well-being, and dignity of many individuals living in both developed and developing countries, as well as their peaceful and sustainable ways of life. Global strategies for the learners from the conflict zone must include the following points. Now, what are they? Education as a tool to prevent violent extremism, media and online coalitions for imparting digital education, increasing youth participation and empowerment through education, celebrating cultural diversity to increase the spread of education. Some ongoing works which we need to concentrate upon are the Kurdish-Turkish conflict, 2015 to present, Somali civil war, communal conflicts in Nigeria, war in Darfur, Boko Haram insurgency, Libyan civil war, Yemeni civil war, and the Sinai insurgency. For details, you can refer to the table given aside. The Kurdish groups, Turkey and the Islamic states. We can see the Turkish government, which has fought PKK since 1984. The airstrikes against Kurdish PKK targets in North Iraq, airstrikes against Islamic State in Iraq. What is the Turkish government doing? They are the Turkish Kurds. That means Turkey is fighting against the Turkish Kurds. They are hostile to Syrian Kurds and they have very good relations with the Iraqi Kurds or the Kurdis, as we can say. The following picture shows us that the ravaged proactive Kurdish youths are ready for the military encounter. So what have we learned? In a gist, what we have learnt are, according to UNESCO reports, half of the 157 million children are currently out of school and they live in conflict-affected zones. In spite of urgent reminders by the international community to address the problem, many schools are still being targeted while others act as shelters. How do the students cope? Situations are grim, especially grim when the people are displaced from the war-affected areas and schools occupied by refugees. This affects the schools because they are closed for civil learning. This learning impacts elementary kids because their classes are considered less important than the secondary ones. It becomes more difficult for the children from the displaced families who find it problematic to accept and adapt themselves in new situations. New techniques are to be innovated for such compromised learners. This must be done by the bloody countries, even that of India, to make integration of these children with the society possible. Everyone lives in fear and agony. Schools in war-affected Jammu and Kashmir in India. The nomads of Jammu and Kashmir, especially the Gujars and Bakarwals, have been badly hit by the armed conflict that engulfed the border state in 1989. Since the beginning of the armed insurgency in the border state, the Gujar and Bakarwal tribes were unwittingly drawn into the conflict. Concept of the mobile school. Mobile schools were seen as an alternative system that can be assembled or disassembled within 30 minutes. The existing Gujar boys hostels should be turned into residential schools and upgraded into graduate levels, and Gujar girl hostels can be established. Sabotage schools, Naxalite movements in Bihar and Jharkhand, nationalized and frequently bombed schools in government-controlled areas. These attacks typically occur during the evening or night and are carried out with improvised explosive devices known locally as the bombs, metal cans packed with explosive materials. The Naxalites do not appear to target the residents directly. The scale of the damage to schools that results from the explosions vary widely. And the chief problems are occupations of school by security forces, barriers caused to education, poor education, baseline in Bihar and Jharkhand, government response to Naxalites, and the educational system. We can do a case study, that is Tankuppa High School, Bihar, and Belhara High School, Jharkhand, shows a similar problems when the research is being done.
The Maoists say they're fighting for India's poor. They see schools as symbols of the state, so they attack them. The government doesn't repair the damage quickly, if at all. Schools become overcrowded. Children are forced to study outdoors.
जो बच्चों के लिए बना था, सरकार का रुपया लगा था इसमें और बहुत देखने में भी सुंदर लगता था, तो बच्चे का भविष्य जो है अंधकारमय हो गया।
ये फीलिंग तो होती है, बहुत अफसोस आता है। पहले किस तरह का रूम था, अभी किस तरह का हो गया, ये थोड़ा सा हम लोग को भी लगता है।
Government security forces occupy schools as bases for anti-insurgent operations. Sometimes they stay for days, often they stay for years. They sleep and work in school buildings as students try to carry on their studies. Students say they've seen security forces detain and beat suspects.
आपको क्या महसूस होता है कि जब आपको कोई भी आदमी आप पकड़ के लेके आते हैं तो उस समय में उसको बच्चे लोग देख के उन लोग का मन में कुछ भावना उत्पन्न होता है?
नहीं, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है। वो लोग हैबिट हो गया है, क्योंकि 2006 से यहाँ चल रहा है। उसके पहले वहाँ जो भवन उड़ा था अभी वैसा कोई ये नहीं है, बच्चा लोग के कोई इफेक्ट नहीं पड़ता।
But students told Human Rights Watch they're afraid to go to school alongside armed men, especially girls.
और पढ़ाई लिखाई में तकलीफ होता है।
क्यों नहीं, जो पुलिस चौकी है वहाँ पुलिस के कारण। स्कूल में यही दिक्कत है कि पुलिस जाने से, पुलिस वहाँ रहने से यही दिक्कत है कि 9 रूम है, उसमें जितना भी लड़कियाँ लोग पढ़ने में खास करके बहुत दिक्कत होता है। 2 रूम है, 2 रूम में कितना पढ़ाई होगा। और पुलिस मेरा माँ बहन लोग जो जाती है गलत नज़र से देखते हैं और बहुत दिक्कत होती है। जो लड़कियां जाती है वही 1-2 दिन जाए, फिर पुलिस चौकी का हटाने से फायदा ये हो कि जितना भी माता बहन है, भाई बहन, खास करके पढ़ाई होगा।
شو اسمك عمو؟ وين ابوك؟ وين مات؟ شنو متريقة متغدية متعشية؟ احكي
हमने सोचा कि जो हमारे बच्चे हैं जो हमारी एजुकेशन सफ़र हो रही है उसको हम काउंटर कर ले, उसको ठीक कर ले, इसीलिए हम ये प्रपोजल उठाया। स्कूल फ्री है सबके लिए, जो चाहे आ सकता है। हम यहाँ पे प्री से लेके 10th तक पढ़ा रहे हैं। बहुत सारे टीचर्स हैं यहाँ पे, कुछ ऐसे हैं जो दूसरे जॉब्स करते हैं लेकिन आज हमारी मदद कर रहे हैं।
तो स्टूडेंट्स का कैसा रेस्पॉन्स रहा?
जी बिल्कुल अच्छा रहा है, पेरेंट्स भी कोऑपरेट कर रहे हैं और बहुत सारे बच्चे आ रहे हैं।
This is Alice. She's 8 years old. She's happy and safe at home, playing with her friends and favourite toys, having her bedtime stories from Mum. Then a war starts in her country, a war she doesn't understand. It destroys the things she loves, her toys, her school, her home, her friends, her mum and dad. All the things that make her feel safe, gone. She is at daily risk of being shot at, abducted, tortured, raped, killed. For 20 years, War Child has proved that even in the worst wars, you can give a child the best possible future. With your support, War Child can protect her from the devastating effects of violence, keeping her safe, helping her cope with the traumas she's faced, getting her back to school, reuniting her with her family.
How can we combat education? How can we rather insert or use education to combat violent extremism? It is important, which must be understood well. We can invest in steps have been shown. Step 1, invest in education. Implement strategies that provide soft skill, provide comprehensive primary education. Step 2, indicate skills and tertiary education. To arrange technical education in particular, impart mobile technology to the deprived youths. Step 3, to give a maximum of short and long-term learning. Inclusive and equitable educational policies must also be arranged. Radicalization and rehabilitation model, rather de-radicalization and rehabilitation model through education. Psychometric assessment can be done with the help of family narrative, and in-tech narrative and community visits can be done again and again. Then we can also have intervention, which includes vocational training, corrective religious instruction, psychosocial support. Then we can have mainstream education, sports and recruitment. Most importantly, we can have reintegration, that includes post-reintegration monitoring, reintroduction, stopping re-engagement into militancy, that is re-civilizing. Dimensions of educational model designed for the learners, such will include inclusion works, partnerships, resilience, policies for the developing countries, and most and above important, which is safety. What is the conclusion that we can draw? Conclusion that we can draw is some recommendations which we have. That is, in a summary, we can say that certain things can be done for the children, certain things can be done for the war-affected people, and these schools should provide a safe and open platform for dialogue and discussion on issues related to violent extremism. More important, schools should address issues related to violent extremism without any reference to the political systems. Global citizenship education should be considered as a useful educational approach to address violent extremism, which is more important, and these strategies are important. Some references have been done which may be of useful way to help you out, and these are O. Fraser and C. Nulinis, 2015, the concept of countering violent extremism. Then we have United Nations Secretary's General Reports, Plan of Action to Prevent Violent Extremism. We have Merriam-Webster, which has been accessed. Then we have United Nations 2016, Activities of the United Nations System in Implementing the United Nations Terrorism Strategy. Then we have Living Safe Together 2016, which is what is violent extremism. We have United Nations Global Counterterrorism Strategy. We also have some other references which I think can be of rather help to you, such as Piracha F. Khan, RRIU and Ayaz, Lessons for De-Radicalizing Young Taliban Fighters, page 50, How to Prevent Extremism, options published by Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, former Faith Foundation, the United Nations Secretary General's report, A Plan of Action to Curb Extremism.